Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about it would appear, we'll know Thursday, upcoming trial brought by the New York District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, involving Trump's conduct before, in the couple months before the election and the payout of hush money to Stormy Daniels. Now, the headline here is there'll be a hearing on Thursday before Judge Merchan. And that at that point, everything's been on hold, and both Merchan and Bragg have signaled, if the other cases are going forward, we will let them. But looks like the other cases are not going forward. All three of them are weighted down, and for one reason or another. And so now, the date that has been set for this, March 25th, there's no reason, I think, not to follow through. So we'll see what date Merchan announces for the actual beginning of the case. But it's time to dust off our notebook on this case and what it's about, etc. I'm not going to give a, soup to nuts recitation about it and the evidentiary tricky points. As it gets closer, I think we will, and my inclination is to have a whole Talking Feds episode from the point of view of maybe prosecutors or maybe both about, actually trying the case. But I want to remind you of the basics so you have it in mind as, you follow the events of this week, and especially what the judge does in the hearing on Thursday, which will be not just set a trial, but he's got a lot of pretrial motions in front of him, mainly the same kind of garbage that Trump files everywhere, and I think we can expect most of them to be denied. The number one point to keep in mind here, you're going to hear commentary all around about how this is the least of serious of the four. I think that's fair. But also basically suggestions that, it's just a sort of trial about sex and Trump's liaison with a porn star, Stormy Daniels, which, by the way, if we're following that storyline, occurs like when his wife is at home with their newborn baby. But I think the important thing is not to see it in that kind of soap operatic light, rather to see it as an election case, and one in which, and this really is the way it's been charged, one in which Trump tried successfully to hoodwink the people to not give them relevant information that would have mattered before the election. And remember now, Trump had taken what people thought was a big hit at the time. I think this was the very first time that of the 25 that people were saying, "Oh, I think he's finished now." The Access Hollywood tape and his what he's called locker room banter, and I think others might call disgusting, frattish, sophomoric boasting. But anyway, that was the big hit from Access Hollywood. Now here comes Stormy Daniels to say that she'd had a liaison with Trump. And she's going to take it public, and it's basically a kind of hush money operation involving the National Enquirer at the time on Trump's side to basically catch and kill, to get the story, but not publish it, and to pay her for it. So that she'll keep quiet at $130,000. And that, take a step back and just, it's secondary that involves salacious allegations. It's really, damaging material to Trump that they pay off so that the people don't know about it. It could have well been germane to people at the time. And in any event, that was his thinking and intent and the campaign's thinking. How do we bury this from the people so they can't consider it when they go to the polls in just a few weeks? That's the way that it's important to think about the case. And that is fairly easy to prove. You know, the basics, again, we'll do a longer account of this whole thing later, but what they did, and not by bumbling, but because they had to, and the way they were hiding it, is to paper over the payment to her as payment of legal fees to Michael Cohen. And so that was a way of camouflaging what they were actually doing. And it stayed secret until, well, not exactly until, but in any event, it all totally bust wide open when Michael Cohen turned against his former boss. So that's the second thing to know, is the basic element of proof is going to be the way they hid the transaction, and that has to do with declaring as a regular, it gets into boring tax stuff. Is it a business expense or is it a campaign contribution? In fact, it's a campaign expense, I think, properly understood, and that's how it'll be charged. But they camouflaged that and papered it over. The third thing to think about is the star witness here is Michael Cohen, and he's a convicted perjurer. And the centerpiece, Trump will try to make the centerpiece of the trial a bruising cross-examination of Michael Cohen. So that's something to keep in mind. But point number 4, Bragg will say, and the prosecution will say, they've got all kinds of evidence. You don't have to believe Michael Cohen. They've got to bring him forward and subject him to a bruising cross-examination. But they've got papers and filings, et cetera, that make it quite clear, and other people, maybe including Larry Pecker, the National Enquirer guy, who will cooperate. Let's see. 5th, will Trump testify? His lawyer, he said he will for sure. There's been some commentators who confidently predicted, yes, he will. He thinks he can fool anybody. My answer, axiom number 1, until proven wrong, Trump cannot testify and will not testify. So really, they'll try to be making their case through really tearing up Michael Cohen and whatever else they can do. But it's a kind of a cut and dried case. Point 6 to know about, and it, as charged, it would be a misdemeanor, except if it's done in furtherance of another crime, it then becomes a felony, and one that typically results in at least a little bit of jail time, which is, worth knowing. If they follow the path of treat him like anybody else, we're looking at a short sentence. But anyway, there's going to be the DA, as is their right, but still, it's going to be, it's a little squirrely. They haven't specified what is the other crime that this furthered. And there's a few candidates, including election crimes, including federal crimes, which gives rise to a legal question. Can you use, under New York law, a federal crime to augment the misdemeanor to a felony? We don't have to go through the entire range of possibilities and candidates, but it's just something to know about now. Finally, timeline. Let's say it starts on the 25th. Everyone's always talking about how long it takes to seat a jury, but that hasn't proven to be the case in the civil trials to date. It seems to me they ought to be able to do it in a week or so, and that, I think, is the view of the office. We'll see. And then we're told it's a 4 or 5 week trial. So, you're talking about maybe a verdict in May or early May, somewhere around that. So in plenty of time. And the strategy for Trump, if that goes forward, won't be to, delay it past the election, but rather to try to poo-poo and trivialize it as, just about sex, as something that already was sort of known before the election, et cetera. And this is sort of the tug of war in the press. In Judge Merchant's courtroom, it'll just be, here are the facts, here's the evidence, here's the law, and hope that the jury applies the law fairly, and there's no one there who nullifies it because they're a big, Trump advocate who won't follow the law, notwithstanding their pledge. But, it's going to be the Fox News version. This is, just small, silly stuff, if you want to, depending on your view of the affair. And the New York version, well, we know this is, a grave crime involving the election and the purposeful concealment from the people of material information they really needed to vote for him, and that might have made a difference. Not simply the affair itself, but the covering up of it, etc. Okay, so time to put on our, or dust off our notebooks for the New York trial. It does look as if it's coming, and those are the kind of overall main points we'll know on Thursday with the hearing. Thursday is a big day for several reasons, but one of them is Merchant will now say, set the trial date, and that it'll be really, moving forward. It'll, have this feeling, as a pretrial does, of sort of acceleration rating, and every week, wow, bringing us closer to actual Donald Trump in the dock as a defendant facing criminal charges. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.